Right, so yeah, what were you doing? What's the deal with the lone wolf thing? Yeah? He shrugs. Those weirdos put me on edge. Weirdos? Weirdos. Well, they all go by code names. Isn't that pretty fucking weird? That's not a normal army thing, is it? They all go by code... Have you seen your own name? As in your real name? I mean... I doubt your mum called you that. You probably have a different name originally. Whatever. Look, all I'm saying is... He slips a hand into his pocket and pulls out a knife just far enough to see the glint of the blade. This baby is going under my pillow. Suddenly, Alpha's voice can be heard booming over everyone else's. You start guiltily, but he's the only laughing with some of his subordinates. But as if sensing your gaze, he turns to your table. Miss Davette, what are you two doing all over there by yourselves? Come be sociable. Lenny deliberately looks away. Things suddenly feel very awkward. If you two continue to sit here, it will look like you're making a point of separating yourself from the others. It could make things around here very difficult. Sit with the others, stay with Lenny. We have to sit with the others. They have everything. We're being dicks by being here. We do not want to separate and alienate ourselves. Come on, Lenny. No way. Fine. You get up and bring your tray over to Alpha's table. Some men move down to make room and welcome you warmly. You can't help but notice that Alpha is still wearing his gloves, even while he shovels food into his mouth. After some banter, he leans in with a slightly lowered voice. He's very jittery. Should we be worried? You glance back over your shoulder. Lenny meets your eyes, obviously aware that he is being talked about. Fuck this. Jumping to his feet, he kicks his chairs away and storms out of the mess hall. You watch him go, confused and torn. One night, you just can't sleep. No matter how much you toss and turn, you can't stop thinking about Lenny's worrying attitude. Eventually, after hours of this, you give in and get up. Time for a distraction. To your surprise, the lights in the mess hall are on. Hello? Ah, Davette. Gamma is sat at a table by the door with a mug in his hand. Looks like I'm busted. You realise that the liquid inside the mug looks like nothing of any available supplies here, yet it's somehow familiar. Cocoa? I have a secret stash. So all the people here, and he chooses to drink his secret stash with lights on in a big room. Clever, clever. Do you want some? Yes, please. I'm a fucking cocoa. I love cocoa. You can hardly believe it, real cocoa. You take a seat and before you know it, you and Gamma have been talking for what might be hours. Just small talk, but it seems to make him happy. I have to admit, it's nice to have someone to talk to. The others are fine, but sometimes you're lucky if you get more out of than a couple of grunts. You do seem a little different to the others. Yep, it's because he's a scientist. Ba-ba. Well, I'm a scientist, so I suppose I am different. Once there was this whole team of us eggheads, but now, well, it's just me. Why? Gamma looks down at his mug. This is a harsh place to live. He hesitates, like he wants to say something, but isn't sure it's a good idea. Finally, coming to a decision, he leans in slightly and lowers his voice, even though you are completely alone. I think a lot of them probably blame me. The soldiers for what? For not being more useful, for surviving when better scientists died. Do you know, every senior member of staff died and access to their records went with them. I was just a junior at the time, little more than the guy who fetched coffee, and now the entire weight of the military's project rests on my shoulders. If you didn't know better, you'd think Gamma had been drinking, but no, it isn't alcohol that loosened his tongue, it's loneliness, plain and simple. Do you know what I mean when I say the word stasis? Uh-oh. Gamma pauses, grip tightening on his mug. We had a lab, just under the base. An entire vault of the best and brightest scientists in the world, sleeping through the apocalypse. When the current generation, meaning mine, started getting old, we were to awaken everyone in the lab so that they continued their work towards rebuilding the world. When my colleagues died before their time, I was left with nothing. I didn't have any of the necessary information to wake the people in stasis safely. I can monitor them. I didn't even have access to the codes to get inside. When the soldiers got antsy and blasted their way in with dynamite, it was already too late. Everyone down there died when they were still plugged in. At least it was a peaceful death for them. Dynamite? Let's hope the explosion didn't wake them up. You think back to the lab that you came from, skeletons lying in their beds. Gamma looks so pitiful, hunched over and suddenly so old and frail. Part of you yearns to reveal who you are, where you came from, but that doesn't seem like a good idea. I'm sorry, please forget everything I just said. It's all nonsense. Anyway, more importantly, I've been meaning to ask about your companion. Lenny? What about him? Is he okay? He seems so tense. He's never hurt you, has he? He means well. His jokes can be pretty painful. Of course not. Has he? Other than that time at the beginning where we don't really blame him for, has he? I don't think he has. So, of course not. Oh, good. Please, I meant no offence. Listen, David. I know that you must feel you owe him a great deal because he has looked out for you in the past, but these men here, they are good men. We can look after you now. Finishing the last sip of his cocoa, Gamma gets to his feet. We can all look after each other. He squeezes your shoulder warmly before leaving the room. Good night, David. Even after he leaves, you remain in the mess hall. By the time you head back to bed, it's already daylight outside. Over the next few nights, you make a habit of visiting the mess when you can't sleep. Gamma's always there without fail, sitting at the same table with his hands clasped in front of his chin, hunched over in thought. Also without fail, he always invites you over with a warm smile as soon as he notices you. Sometimes that isn't until you've already been standing in front of him for a few seconds. He's clearly a man with a lot on his mind. Rick? Of course he is! Did you not listen to anything that just happened, David? Tonight, you are a little later than usual. It can no longer be really called night. You catch Gamma just as he's leaving, almost bumping right into him in the doorway. Ah, David, I thought you weren't coming. I think I'm finally sufficiently exhausted to get a couple hours of sleep, but please feel free to stay here as long as you like. Oh, I do. Don't worry. You know where my cocoa is hidden, right? Please help yourself. He passes by, and with that you are alone in the mess hall. Settling into a chair, you wait for sun to come up. A scuffling sound and a shadow passing the doorway suddenly makes your back go rigid. Gamma is easy enough to talk to, but it's hard to feel comfortable around the other gruffer soldiers. And you're not sure how you'd get along with one of them by yourself in a deserted room. Down the cocoa first. You don't want anyone drinking that. And let's face it, if this is Lenny, he's probably bitter that we're talking to someone else and drinking something he doesn't have. Except the shadow doesn't stop and turn into the room, but keeps moving. You catch a glimpse before it disappears from view, but can't help but blink in surprise. Lenny? Wondering what he's doing out of bed, you creep to the doorway, not entirely sure why you're creeping, just knowing that it feels appropriate, and squint after him in the darkness. The way he's heading leads to only one destination. The exit. Yep, dark filter over light day, just checking. You follow him silently to the large metal door. Any possibility that he might simply be lost is destroyed in one motion as he pushes the door open and steps out into the dim early morning light. Where's he going? Even as you whisper the question aloud, you feel in your heart that you know the answer. He's made no secret of his distrust of the army. For days now he's been able to sit still. His body is always tense, his eyes alert, darting about at the slightest sound, like he can't relax as long as he's in the base. Maybe he's not going out for a walk to get a breath of fresh air, but maybe it's not that. Maybe he's had enough. Maybe his paranoia grew strong while you were busy talking about Coco with the very people that he couldn't bring himself to trust. Maybe he's leaving for good. Look, come on. All I'm saying here is that if he did leave, would you care? Really? I wouldn't, in the slightest. Before you can turn it over in your head anymore, you're already out in the door after him. Lenny is a little way ahead and halts as soon as he hears the door opening again behind him, tension clear in the flex of his back. He speaks hesitantly without turning around. David? Tease him, say nothing. What's the point of teasing him? Lenny. He sighs. Busted. Turning, he gives you a sheepish look. So, you're probably wondering where I'm going, huh? Where are you going? Any chance I can get out of this without spilling my guts? It's too early in the morning. Are you leaving me here? What are you... Why would you even think something like that? Why else would you be sneaking out? Sneaking? I wouldn't say it's sneaking. It's more... It's not... Look, I'm not taking off, okay? I just gotta go somewhere, then I'm coming right back. But where are you going? Tell you what, why don't you just come with me? Sensing your hesitation, he hurries to clarify. We'll be out a couple of hours tops, Gav's honour. Okay, yeah, great. Come on then. Lenny leaps into a jeep parked beside the main door and motions for you to get in. Our new buddies won't mind if we borrow their wheels, right? Awesome, get in. This is a terrible idea. I can't believe we're doing it. You do. After a few jerky stops and starts, the jeep rolls out of the compound. Hey, aren't you bad at this, huh? You can't quite manage to drive in a straight line, but well, it isn't such a problem when there are no pedestrians to hit or roads to follow. I'm gonna say, when it's a barren waste, I'm not sure that's a problem. Okay, driving over this, you'd be fucked. Okay, there is no way you get anywhere. Look at the amount of rocks. Whatever. Once you're out into the Dust Bowl, Lenny seems to know exactly where he's heading, not faltering in direction once. He keeps quiet as he drives, his jaws set in grim concentration. You watch the scenery zoom by until finally the jeep stops. There's not much difference about this patch of land except a few small blown out buildings. Lenny kills the engine and climbs out of the vehicle. You get out as well and find him standing completely still, staring ahead. So, this is my hometown. Of all the things he could have said, you were not expecting that. Yeah, I was expecting for him to try and, like, go and see something, or that he'd picked up a new signal. Not just an emotional journey. It's lovely. Why didn't you tell me you used to live out here? Keep quiet. Why did you tell me you used to live out here? I don't know. I'd better not talk about it, I guess. Lenny flashes you a small smile and starts walking around the wreckage of the ghost town. They called it Hope. It was supposed to be a farming community, but even back then it was a poor excuse for one. He passes through the missing wall of a three-walled ruin of a stone hut. I used to live here with my mama and grandpa. You think cohabiting in the shack was hard? Try sleeping in one room with 3 generations of family. But it wasn't a bad life. Mummy used to spoil me rotten, drove grandpa nuts. Maybe it's finally time to ask. Is it? What happened? Bandits. There was this one gang that must have had a camp somewhere near, because we were like their personal punching bag. They'd show up every few weeks demanding food or water or stuff they liked the look of. After a while, they started asking for women. One time, they asked after me. A skinny-armed 9-year-old, don't know what they wanted with me. Anyway, that's when we started refusing, and... shit, what were we thinking? Like it could have ended any other way than this. They came back one day and just slaughtered the town, every single person. Mama, she tried to hide the both of us, but one of them came and... yeah... you don't have to say anymore. Thanks, but... Lenny swallows hard and continues. She did her best, you know? She wasn't a strong woman. She was 3 years old when the bombs fell. Grandpa used to say there was a part of her that stopped growing then and there. He used to say she wasn't made for this kind of world. But she did her best. She stabbed that arsehole in the leg with a knife before he... well, you know. Then he grabbed me, but I don't think he wanted to kill me because he started trying to drag me away. I bit him. Bit down in his hand so hard that I could hear the blown... taste the blood. You know what's really crazy? I can remember all of that. I can remember how he tasted. But I can't remember his face. Don't know if he was old or young, skinny or fat. Could have been ugly and scared to shit, or he could have looked like a prince. You've been watching and listening in silence all this time, but Lenny has been talking with his gaze fixed to the wall, like he's not talking for an audience. Finally, he seems to become aware that you were standing beside him. Anyway, he let go and I ran. He couldn't catch me with his leg all fucked up, but his friends were all busy with the others. This person's going to end up being in the army. You would not mention someone like this unless they were going to feature later on down the line. I want to put that out there now. I left him. I left everyone and ran away until my legs wouldn't work anymore. I lost everything. I felt dead already. I don't know how many days I spent just wandering, but if Billy hadn't found me, I would have just rotted where I fell. I know that. Lenny closes his eyes for a long moment. When he opens them, they're clearer than they've been in a long time. Sorry for dumping all of this on you. One thing about Lenny's story is bothering you. Couldn't you have gone to the army base for help? Something dark and painful flickers across his face. We didn't know it was there. You think how sad it is that Hope was so close to help and they never knew? Maybe none of this had to happen. They did know. They knew. It must have occurred to Trash too. Fuck, Lenny too. No wonder he's been so edgy around the military guys. Suddenly, Lenny drops to his knees, putting a hand on the ground, and he takes a deep breath. Hey, Grandpa. Oh, of course, this ruined hut is the closest thing Lenny's family has to a grave. Hey, Mama. It's me, Carlito. Carlos is his real name. I'm not surprised. I'm sorry I haven't visited. I kind of ran a long way. I guess I never stopped running. Wait for him to finish. It's disrespectful to go beside him. You stand still and silent, waiting for him to finish. Lenny briefly looks up at you before turning his attention back to the ground. Actually, Mama, I kind of have someone to introduce to you. Her name's Davette. I wouldn't have made it back here without her. To be honest, I owe her a lot. He bumps his shoulder against yours and smiles. After Lenny said all he needs to say, you leave the ruins of hope together. Something seems to have changed inside him. He seems lighter, warmer. Okay. He climbs back into the Jeep and flashes you a little grin. Back to the fun house. Aren't they going to be pissed off at us? The Creeping Truth. The army doing something sinister. That's what a title like that would suggest. Gotta wait for it to come up. There we are. One morning, you're heading outside to stretch your legs. As you pass by a group of soldiers milling in group, they call out to you. Morning, David. Sleep well? Yes, thanks. How are... Suddenly, a loud clatter of the sound of yelling breaks your conversation. What the... It came from the direction of the mess hall. You start running. Inside, the noise has already attracted a lot of the other soldiers who are standing in a circle and now only adding to the commotion. Stepping between them, you finally come to the circle where Lenny and Alpha are standing facing off. Ah, this is such a dumb idea. Why did you do this?